Whether you're a pro cyclist, a weekend warrior, or somewhere in the middle, the wheels that you ride have probably changed quite a lot over the last 10 years or so. In this video, we'll be debunking wheel myths, cutting through the marketing jargon, and answering as many of your questions as possible, including whether carbon spokes are the future, whether you should use your carbon rims through winter, and whether we should be buying direct from China. Why are modern wheels so wide? Well, I promise I'm not trying to start a rim brake versus disc brake debate here, but the fact is that for one reason or the other, most bikes being sold these days are the latter. Clearly, that's meant that wheels have changed quite a lot, and one of the benefits of disc brakes is that wheels are no longer restricted by the confines of a rim brake caliper, which could typically cope with a wheel of about 28mm wide, and many much narrower than that. These days, wheels are really wide, and there's rims out there such as these Roval Rapides that measure a whopping 35mm at their widest point. But why might you want a wheel to be so wide? Well, the main reason is stability. In the olden days, carbon rims were V-shaped, and that's because, well, that's just what could be manufactured. However, it quickly became accepted that a U-shaped profile resulting in less buffeting in crosswinds. The idea of rims getting wider and wider is basically a continuation of that. And it's all about trying to reduce stall. More on that in a bit. Obviously, the fact that tyres have been getting wider and wider is also a contributing factor. Put a 28mm tyre on a classic 19mm width rim and you get the light bulb effect, which some people say means the tyre has less support when underloading corners. Should the rim be wider than the tyre? Well, that light bulb effect also isn't particularly great for aerodynamics or rolling resistance, with many brands claiming that for ultimate speed, your wheel rim should actually be wider than the tyre. You might have heard about manufacturers talking about the rule of 105 before. This states that for maximum efficiency, the widest point of the rim should be around 105% of that of the tyre. For example, if you want to use a 28mm tyre, then the rule states that the ideal rim would have an external width of 29.4mm at its widest point. Of course, this isn't an exact science, but most wheel manufacturers do seem to agree that a wheel slightly wider than the tyre is best for performance. Next question, what is the best depth for all-round / everyday riding? Well, it's an age-old question, isn't it? And the answer will depend on the terrain, weather conditions, and your priorities as a rider. I do think that most riders watching this will have at least some interest in performance, or efficiency at least, so I'd recommend going for something around 40mm deep, as that's what I would personally feel comfortable riding year-round on both flat and hilly courses. Saying that, wheel tech has come on quite some way in the last decade or so, and that means that many riders can get away with something deeper than that. For example, some 50mm deep wheels are now competitively light and aren't going to leave you clinging on for dear life when the wind picks up. Can I use my carbon wheels during winter? Ooh, good question, and one that is sure to start a debate in the comments section. Obviously, the mass takeover of disc brakes means that you're no longer relying on those pesky carbon braking surfaces, which had varied success in the wet, and you're also not wearing out your expensive hoops, so it is far more attractive to use your fancy wheels year-round. So, to answer your question, yes, you can, but do bear in mind that you'll probably have to replace the bearings, and if your wheels have aluminium spoke nipples, then they can also corrode. If you do plan on using a wheel set during the winter months, then it might be worth looking into a set of wheels with brass spoke nipples, which are much more resilient to crap conditions. My personal preference is to use the cheaper alloy wheels that came on my bike during winter, set up with a cheaper set of discs, more hardy tyres and tubeless, and then save my fancy carbon wheels with latex inner tubes and racier tyres for those rides that I want to go as fast as possible on. Are carbon spokes better? Something that has become increasingly popular on recent top-end releases, like, this Cadex wheel set is for spokes to be made of carbon. Carbon, as we all know, is a bit of a wonder material and has an absolutely insane strength-to-weight ratio. Therefore, a wheel with carbon spokes can often be lighter, potentially stiffer, and sometimes even allow the manufacturer to reduce the spoke count of the wheel whilst maintaining its strength. That all sounds like things we like, so what are the negatives? Well, speaking to a few brands has revealed that there are plenty of drawbacks as well as the undeniable positives. Firstly, they're quite a bit more expensive than steel spokes, and that price is obviously going to be passed on to us, the consumer. Secondly, no one was exactly maxing out the tension of steel spokes, so if a carbon spoke wheel is stiffer, then it was probably possible to produce it with steel spokes, albeit slightly heavier. Thirdly, there is chat that carbon spokes aren't as aero, as at the moment most carbon spokes are fatter than bladed steel ones. Hunt, for example, has released this graph with their limitless wheel set, where the blue line represents the carbon spoke offering and the green line an identical rim with steel spokes. As you can see, the drag force in grams on the y-axis is very, very marginally less for the steel spokes. So, should your next wheel set have carbon spokes? Maybe. There's a time and a place for carbon spokes, and that is on wheel sets for racing, in my opinion. I'd say that if you're looking for the ultimate in weight, performance and stiffness, then yes, carbon spokes allow wheels such as these Cadex Ultras to push the boundaries of performance. However, what I'd hate to see is all wheel sets making the transition to carbon spokes. They can make a wheel feel harsher, push the price up, and make serviceability more arduous. Are expensive wheels better than cheap ones? Yeah, kind of. For this, I'm going to point you in the direction of our wheel testing videos, where we've pitted alloy shallow section wheels against deeps and some value carbon wheels against the most expensive in the business. Spoiler alert, deeps do make a measurable difference if you're riding flats and descents, but the gains diminish the more you spend. If you want maximum performance, then you're probably looking at spending something around the £1,500 mark, but rest assured that if you turn up to a race with a cheaper set and a bit of luck, the strongest legs and the best racecraft, then you're not going to get robbed of a victory. Should I buy from China or stick to the more established brands? Well, as many of you already know, most carbon wheel sets will come from the Far East, no matter what label they have on them. So it is sometimes questionable what more you're getting by buying from a more well-known brand. My personal opinion is that there's some very good options out there and you can buy directly, but you should proceed with caution. For example, I've been using a set of custom-built light bicycle wheels, which are ridiculously good value, and they haven't skipped a beat. They really are the match of wheels that are the best in the business. However, I would personally draw the line at ordering wheels off the likes of AliExpress or Wish. After all, the results could be pretty catastrophic. That's not to say all wheels coming from these sites are bad, but often it's the quality control that's a bit more lax, and personally, I'm not prepared to take that risk. So in conclusion, yes, buy direct from China by all means, but do your research, read the reviews, go careful and look for the warranty information and watch out for customs charges. Why do some wheels have a wavy profile? Just like on these Princeton Carbonworks. It's time to revisit the mysterious land of stool for this one. The likes of Zipp and Princeton Carbonworks are just two brands that have opted for this wavy rim profile, often referred to as a sawtooth profile. They do it for two reasons: crosswind stability and aerodynamic performance, with the idea being that a wheel performs like a deeper wheel and behaves like a shallower one. But how does it do it? Imagine you're riding in a crosswind. The wind from the side is pushing against your wheel. It's annoying because you don't have a tailwind, but all is good in the world. Then suddenly your front wheel snatches away from you. Your life flashes before your eyes and you thank your lucky stars you're not sat in a ditch. What's actually happened at this moment is that the wheel rim can no longer sustain the build-up of pressure on the side of the rim. All of it spills over, everything goes very turbulent, and then the wheel is sucked back in to this area of now very low pressure. The deeper the rim, the more pressure can build up. There's in effect a bigger wall to contain that pressure, and therefore the consequences of when it releases are much bigger. The idea of these wavy profile rims is that they repeatedly shed air vortices, allowing this pressure to release in lots of little bits instead of one big brown bib-inducing chunk. How do they put nipples in wheels without spoke holes in the rim bed? Well, magnets. That's your answer. So, as more and more wheels are being run tubeless, we're seeing more wheels without the spoke holes in the rim bed. That means that you don't have to use rim tape. In the case of these Princeton Carbonworks outers, makes them really light. However, to get the spoke nipples in without these holes is quite the mission. Each nipple is fed into the rim through the valve hole, and then a magnet is used to pull it through each hole. To make things harder, aluminium nipples aren't magnetic, and so a bit of steel spoke is attached to each one of them and then removed and replaced with the actual spoke once the nipples are in position. Will wheels become integrated like everything else? I hope not. I'm assuming that this question is referring to the wheels themselves rather than being integrated into the bike frame, but we are already seeing the hub, spokes and rims merging into one. Lightweight and Mavic were some of the first to make this idea popular, but there are plenty more examples from more modern releases, for example the Syncross wheels. Integrating the hub shell, the The spokes and the rim does have some performance advantages, such as stiffness and weight, but there is one major drawback. Break a spoke and you've just written off a very, very expensive wheel set. I think we need to leave these super integrated wheels to the pros, and I'll be keeping my fingers crossed that this kind of tech doesn't trickle down into the mass market options. Is hookless the future? I think the person who asked this question is just trying to start a fight. Yeah, I think tubeless and hookless probably is the future. The bike industry tried to get us all onto hookless a few years ago, and I think the main reason it failed was because we just weren't ready. Even in the last few years though, there have been some big changes. Road cyclists are much more accepting of tubeless. ETRTO standards have gotten much better, and most people are now using wider tyres, which means lower pressures and fewer hookless incidents. There's also a much larger selection of tubeless and hookless compatible tyres out there, which used to be one of the main drawbacks. As hookless wheels are not only lighter but cheaper and easier to make, I don't think it will be long before manufacturers have another concerted effort at making the transition. It does, after all, work very well on cars. If you've got any more wheel questions, then pop them in the comments section below and we'll try and answer them in a future video. If you haven't already, then please drop us a like, and if you found this video interesting, subscribe to the channel for more cycling tech content. We'll see you next time.